Hollyoaks and a bit of Little Brother, just for starters, from 10 to 9. Now on for Diana Binks's at Silverstone for a unique celebration.
Hello and welcome to the Silverstone Classic, Britain's biggest historic racing festival. Now this weekend is very much etched in the motorsport calendar. It's a bit like bringing a museum to life for 3 days with some spectacular classic cars in action from over 8 decades, so a great sight to see. It's also a celebration of the first ever Grand Prix held here 60 years ago. The circuit may have changed beyond all recognition, but the action has always been spectacular. The Silverstone Classic this weekend is a chance to time travel through motor racing history. The paddock is open, so anybody can go in and have a look at some amazingly expensive machinery. They're able to get up close to over 4,000 classic road cars, as well as see 700 historic race cars that are taking part in the event. It's also a chance to see the cars how they were meant to be seen, competing in 21 races over 3 days, as well as getting to rub shoulders with the drivers and many famous faces that are around the event.
It's a fantastic event. To be honest, it's the first time I've been to it, and I'm enormously impressed, but partly because Silverstone is such a perfect place to have it, partly because Silverstone's where I did my very first ever Formula One broadcast.
This type of event is very much for a family atmosphere as well. I've got my two sons here, Sam and Finn, and after this we're just going to have a look around and have a look at the old cars because they're just such beautiful machines.
Appropriately, the highlight of the weekend on this 60th anniversary will be the breathtaking sight of some of the greatest Formula One cars of all time racing flat out to entertain the fans. Now, they may be old cars, but the racing will be fierce out there on track. Now in this programme, as well as seeing the action from Grand Prix racing, we'll be taking you on a journey through the development of cars from the mighty pre-war beasts through to the ultra high-tech machinery that we see in Formula One today. So let's catch up with Rob Barth as he guides us through Formula One's and Silverstone's history.
So let's take a look at some of the earliest examples racing here at Silverstone this weekend. They come from the pre-war Grand Prix era, a generation of cars where current Formula One cars can trace their roots right the way back to. Manufacturers such as Alfa Romeo, Fraser-Nash and ERA were building purpose-built race cars that competed around Europe against each other, predominantly on street courses. After the disruption of the Second World War, racing started to get underway again, and in 1948 the Royal Automobile Club, in association with the British Racing Drivers Club, took out a one-year lease on the Silverstone Aerodrome. Silverstone was chosen because Donington Park was littered with debris from its wartime role as a supply depot, and much of the Brooklands track had been redeveloped to test aircraft upon during the war. There was an abundance of airfield sites, and Silverstone was just one of them. The circuit was made up using part of the airfield perimeter track and the 2 existing major runways. Although it has changed, the basis of the track can still be seen today at corners such as Copse, Woodcote and the famous Hanger Straight. Back then, the entry was made up of the factory-backed Talbots and Maseratis, as well as privateer entrants running pre-war examples like this Alfa Romeo. The race was dominated by the Maseratis and won by Luigi Villaresi, with Alberto Ascari hot on his heels. In 1950, Silverstone hosted the first ever Formula One World Championship round. Back then, the cars looked very different to the examples we see racing today. The tyres were narrow and treaded. The engines, which were mounted in the front, were either 1.5 litre supercharged or up to 4.5 litre normally aspirated. There were no aerodynamics to speak of, and the championship was dominated by manufacturers such as Alfa Romeo, Mercedes-Benz, Ferrari and Maserati. By the late 1950s, we saw the first major technological breakthrough, and the technology can still be seen in today's modern Formula One machinery. Cooper reintroduced the rear engine layout, which had been used in pre-war auto unions. However, back then, the futuristic design made the cars very hard to handle. Cooper's design, though, was a much more nimble chassis, so much easier to drive, and it cornered faster. And despite having less power, they could still take the fight to the bigger engine cars. In 1958, a young Stirling Moss took the first rear-engine victory at the Argentine Grand Prix, and within 2 years, the front-engine cars were resigned to the history books.
First up, it's the James Hunt Trophy, featuring cars from 1966 to 1978. Peter Williams claimed pole position from Michael Fitzgerald to make it an all-March front row. So let's get on with the race.
And off they go, and it's Williams who gets the jump, and Williams makes a good start, and it's March 1-2 here. Fitzgerald in second place, but Toby, who is into third place, coming down into Cox for the first time.
Well, the Hesketh is having a sniff, but it's the McLaren that slots into fifth position. The Surtees is the orange car as it goes up out of Cox Corner, but look at the lead of Williams leading this, I'm going to say Grand Prix, let's just call it a Grand Prix.
Let's call it Grand Prix. We mentioned that Stefan Johansson won, of course, in this race at Anderstorp, and I think he made some tweaks to that car that makes it go better than it's ever gone before, and I think Peter Williams learned a lot from him in that exercise, which was so successful.
Well, he qualified 3/4 of a second on the pole position. The man in second position, Michael Fitzgerald, in another March 761. All sorts of bumping and boring. There's the Brabham Alpha of Balson, having a real sniff as he goes through the Stowe corner. Up behind, of course, the a lot earlier McLaren that's ahead of him. And that McLaren, real sort of Hunt-esque. Look at it, big fat tyres, small front tyres, the stuff where they used to drift around Woodcut Corner pre-days of chicane, but then you can glimpse, you can squint in your mind's eye and see Lauder or maybe Watty driving that Brabham.
Just going through the picture now, it is the Penske which Paul Natfield is driving. That's the ex-Sytner car, which I think might have won this race a year ago here at Silverstone, actually. And there is that fabulous Brabham, although it wasn't particularly successful. I just like the look of it. And there's the T-Tray March, and the Hesketh 24, of course, the number which James Hunt had on the car when he won at Zandvoort. That huge airbox, that car built to the stables at Easton Nest, and just about 5 or 6 miles away from here, the other side of Toaster. And that great team managed by Bubbles Horsley and the late Dr. Harvey Postlethwaite, of course, the designer, and that team had a lot of fun.
They did indeed. The mechanics wearing Gucci loafers, I understand.
Right. I talked to Lord Hesketh, I think at the first race at Monaco, first time I went to Monaco, he said, we're the only team, all the other teams have got 2 cars and 1 yacht. We've got 1 car and 2 yachts.
The way it should be. Well, and as they all charge up after their second lap, it's a 25-lap race. Here's your leader, past our box. Oh, and it's close with Fitzgerald. He's closed into 0.3 of a second.
And we're getting a bit of a challenge here. Look, Peter Williams, as the Hollywood car comes out of slipstream, dives down the inside, can't make it stick. And these 2 marches racing well together.
It was good to hear from Martin Stretton, who was victorious twice already today, about the racing in the Group C car race. He said, well, it was clean, and that's what he enjoyed most. No dirty racing, no wheel banging. We're racing for fun here, and we're putting on a show. But likewise, these drivers, they've got some exceptional kit. They can't just go out and make another one. Ah, now here is the Cooper Alpha. Frank Lyons driving this car. Very early car, of course.
Yes,
to be
no
in
wings
this,
on that, of course.
On this grid. Frank Lyons, he's just bought it. He likes odd stuff.
Well, that's odd enough. And of course, these cars normally ran with Maserati engines in them. And we just saw the shadow of Frank Lyons, who is in the excavation business, doing a bit of excavating there. But oh dear, Frank's car has hit a mechanical problem, and he pulls off.
Oh, the leader spun!
He spun it away.
Peter Williams spun out of the race, but he's managed to get back going again. That's into the complex here.
That's pressure.
And absolutely. So Fitzgerald has buckled. Here we have a replay. Look at the leader on the left-hand side. Oh, and he just loses it on the brakes.
Too deep on the brakes because of the pressure, and locks up, just makes that tiny mistake, and around he goes.
Michael Fitzgerald wins a fantastically exciting race. He crosses the line to be victorious ahead of Peter Williams. Close racing all the way.
So the final results are that Mike Wrigley took 3rd and Peter Williams was 2nd, but it was a very happy Michael Fitzgerald who took the win. Many congratulations. How was the race?
It was really good. We got a good start. Peter was going really, really well. I was surprised he was going so quickly, and we kind of had a strategy to just stay with him, pressure him, and hopefully we'd make a mistake. And that's exactly what happened. He drove a really good race. It seemed like we gapped out on everybody, so I really, really enjoyed myself.
Busy day.
Formula One's legendary commentator Murray Walker was here signing autographs and chatting to the public. We took the opportunity to have a chat with him before he came out of retirement and got back behind the microphone.
Murray, we're here at the Silverstone Classic. I mean, it's a great event, isn't it?
It's a fantastic event. It's one of the very few places, the Classic, where you can see so many historic cars, touring cars, sports cars, Formula One cars, all immaculately restored. But to see things like the six-wheel Tyrrell again and the Lotus 88, which the twin chassis car, which never actually competed in a Grand Prix because of political reasons. I think the 80s, as far as I was concerned, were the best times because not only did we have very interesting motor cars, not that they're not interesting now, but we had Nigel Mansell, Nelson Piquet, Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna, all racing against each other, and they were all world champions, and we haven't got that now.
And this weekend you're sort of coming out of retirement doing a bit of commentary. Are you sort of looking forward to that?
Yes, I am, with some trepidation. I haven't done any for a long time, and I'm hoping that it hasn't left me. But the fact that it's a comparatively short race and the fact that there are so many great historic cars is helping me on my way, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Coming up, we see all the action from the historic Formula One races, and we get Murray Walker back behind the microphone.
Volvo XC90 range from £29,995. Life is better lived together.
This multi-millionaire is going undercover.
Looks like something out of East Berlin.
To one of Glasgow's roughest areas.
I would have been prejudiced against almost everyone.
On a journey that will change his life.
I'm on a high.
And the lives of the people he meets forever.
I want to give you £225,000.
The Secret Millionaire continues Tuesday at 9 on 4.
Welcome back to the Silverstone Classic, and as much as everyone loves the action out there on track, there's a lot of interest in the classic car auction, so we're taking a look inside.
The earliest motor car in the Bonham sale is the 1935 Bentley 3.5 litre saloon, coachwork by Freestone and Webb. This car's from the Richard Lloyd collection, one of 8 cars that we're selling here tonight, and the estimate on it is between £45,000 and £55,000.
Start me where you will, £20,000 bid, thank you, 20,000 in advance, 20, 20,000, 22, 25, 45 bid here, against 2 bids here, 2 standing the telephone, 45 is the bid, the 50,000, 50,000, 51, £52,000 then. Fair warning, ladies and gentlemen, against 3 telephones, against 6 bids here and 2 over here. Are you all finished? All done at 52 anymore? Yours, sir, 52.
Another one of the highlights of the sale is the 1973 Porsche 911 RS Touring. This is a right-hand drive car, one of only 100 made, and the estimate on this is between £80,000 and £100,000.
50,000 bid, 50, 55,000, 55, 60. £60,000, 60,000, 65,000, 70,000. With me now at 75. 75,000. Nope, you're out at 76 then, going at that. If there's no better bid at 70, 77,000. 78,000. Last chance, fair warning. Your car, sir, 78,000.
The star of the show and our lead car at the sale is the 1985 Porsche 956, the Richard Lloyd racing car. Second at Le Mans in 1985. We have an estimate on it of between £280,000 and £320,000.
Porsche 956 Racing Coupe, the famous, world-famous Canon Porsche. There it is now being shown. But this would star in any race, in any series, anywhere. Awesome 2.8-litre twin turbo model with that fantastic Nigel Stroud honeycomb aluminium monocoque chassis. Well, a lot of interest, ladies and gentlemen. Several bids already in. Telephones live as well. £180,000 offered. 180,000. We're here to sell it, ladies and gentlemen. £180,000. The advance on 180. 180,000. 90,000 bid. Thank you. 190. 200,000. 200,000 and £200,000. Going at that at 220,000. Thank you. At 220,000. 220,000 at 30,000. I've taken the bid at 230. 230, another one. Another bid. 230,000. No, they're out. Then at 230,000. With me at 230 against you standing. Here, 230. You bidding? 230 then. Last chance. Fair warning. All done at 230. No more. 230. That's with me, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, the mighty Porsche may not have found a new home just yet, but who knows, we might find it racing here next year in the Group 2 Le Mans car race. Now it's time for the international trophy race for Formula 1 cars from 66 to 1985. Peter Sowerby took pole in his Williams ahead of Katsu Kubota in the Lotus. Let's join our commentary team of Toby Moody and the legend that is Murray Walker.
Toby Moody here, and I'm glad to say that I've been joined up here in the commentary box by Murray Walker. Murray, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Toby, and it's great to be back at Silverstone. I say great to be back. I've been back umpteen times, but this was actually where I did my first ever broadcast on Formula One, and it was as long ago as 1949 when Baron Tullio de Graffenried actually won the race in a Maserati 4CL. Engine drives, go, 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 and away they go. And Sowerby has put his foot straight down as they go into Copse. And they approach Copse on a flying lap at about 160 miles an hour. Kubota's going for it, and they line up behind each other as they surge round the fifth gear corner at Copse, down towards Maggots, that tremendously fast left-hander, into the series of bends at Beckett's, left, right, then down to round Chapel, the left-hander, and then down for the first time the Hanger Straight. That is a fifth gear, 170 mile an hour straight.
Sowerby leading, but Kubota made a mistake through the complex. He may have lost a bit of drag, but he's managed to use the straight line speed of the Lotus.
Terrific
he
start.
Stays second.
Yeah, terrific start from Joachim Fulch, who's gained a place. He's up from third. There is Steve Hartley in the Arrows. Now he's last on the track. He's very, very quick. He's third in the championship overall, and it's going to be mighty interesting because he's going to start scything his way through this field of much slower cars in front of him. He's mighty quick, but he's going to have to be mighty, mighty quick to catch Peter Sowerby, who is leading.
But look at Jochen Falk in the Parmalat Brabham, the Gordon Murray car, trying to get around the outside of the Lotus, and he's having a look on the inside underneath the bridge. That's a brave manoeuvre. He nearly loses his nose as he comes into the stadium for the first time.
And he retains it, and so there it is. You can see as Sowerby continues to lead. Now Kubota's got a big problem. He's got, first of all, to try and catch Sowerby, and secondly, he's got to try and keep Fulch behind him. And he's not going to be able to do that very much longer, because I'm quite sure that the Spanish driver, Joachim Fulch, is going to pull out of the slipstream of the Lotus and take him before they get to Copse. Sowerby into Copse, and Fulch has gone through, up into second place. So he's gone from fourth to third, from third to second. Now he's going to try and close down the gap between himself and race leader Peter Sowerby.
Sowerby leads by 2.3 seconds. His pace from qualifying continues. He was on pole by 2.4 seconds. He leads this race by 2.4 seconds, and Kubota makes a mistake, and he's over the grass.
And just look at the arrows there, number 29, which has moved up into third position. It's Hubertus Balson's car. Baltzen comes from Switzerland. He's got a great deal of money and he's spending it very sensibly, in my opinion, because he's spending it on Formula One historic car racing. And the two Lotus 88s are 4th and 5th. And there's Kubota going off, replay of him, bouncing his way in the twin chassis Lotus off the track. Baltzen sees his opportunity, grasps it with both hands, he's through, and number 10 continues to hold the lead. Number 10, of course, being Peter Sarby.
If we were commentating on this, if I was commentating on this, but Murray did, it would be Reutemann leading from PK from Rosberg.
It would indeed, and what wonderful names they are. Keke Rosberg, 1982, world champion. Nelson Piquet, world champion in 1981 and 1983. Still Sarby leading, Fox second, R third, Baltzen 4th position, Kubota 5th, Dan Collins in 6th position, and we're all looking now at that wonderful Essex livery that the Lotus 88 cars have got. And Essex was headed up by a chap called David Team, who always used to work.
Sorry to interrupt, I think there's been a spin because we've lost one Lotus. I think, Murray, there's a spinner. That's another car at the back of the circuit going into Vale, but there was a spinner of a Lotus in the complex, and there's another one that's gone off.
They're all starting to go off, and number 35 off there is Peter Dunn, 761 March. And that's a car that was driven by Ronnie Peterson and Hans Stuck in its heyday, a 1976 car, and it looks as though Peter Dunn is very much out of this race. Peter Sarby is racking up, or about to rack up, maximum points in this FIA historic Formula One race at Silverstone. Into Bridge Corner for the last time of some 140 miles an hour, up to the complex at Priory and Brooklands, both of them left-handers, then into the long double right-hander at Luffield, which leads into Woodcote. He'll come out of that at about 140 miles an hour to see that wonderful sight if you're in the leading car, and that is the checkered flag. And Peter Sarby exits Woodcote now, over the line, 10 points, 9 points for victory. There's the checkered flag. Look how close it is between Ironker, 3rd and 4th, over the line.
Confirmation of that result, and it was a great drive by Peter Sarby in the Williams to take the win here at Silverstone.
I'm not the best starter, I must admit, and when I saw I was in the lead in the first corner, I never really took any notice after them. Just carried on looking ahead and pushing, and that was it.
Let's take a breather from all the action and catch up with Rob Barth as he guides us through Formula One's and Silverstone's history.
The end of the 1950s saw Mike Hawthorne become Britain's first ever Formula One world champion. He took the title by just 1 point from Sterling Moss, and that started a period of racing where Britain dominated the world. The 1960s was Britain's golden era of Formula One. Both Graham Hill and Jim Clark took the title twice. John Surtees became the first and only man to take a world championship on both 2 and 4 wheels. And by the end of the decade, Jackie Stewart took his first of 3 world championship crowns. 1965 was an incredible year for homegrown talent. Jackie Stewart made his debut for the BRM team. Jim Clark not only won the Formula One World Championship for Lotus, but also won the Indy 500 in North America. And amazingly at Silverstone, the top 5 drivers in the Grand Prix were all British. By now, the rear-engine cars were dominant. However, in 1967, Team Lotus and Colin Chapman moved the game on a step further. By bolting the engine directly to the back of the chassis, it became a load-bearing structure, improving the handling enormously, and the other manufacturers quickly followed suit. By the end of the 1960s, a basic understanding of aerodynamics was creeping into the sport. The cars sprouted both front and rear wings indirectly from the aviation industry, and that gave us the basic silhouette which still survives to this day. It also marked the end of innocence within the sport. As technology advanced, budgets increased, and sponsors' logos appeared in a quest to balance the books. The 1970s started badly. Less than 2 years after the sport was rocked to its core by the death of Jim Clark, Austrian driver Jochen Rindt became the sport's first and only posthumous Formula One world champion. His fatal accident at Monza opened people's eyes to the need to improve safety, both in the cars and at the circuits. It was also the time where the media first started to pick up upon some of the sport's more flamboyant characters. As Formula One became more internationally known, names like Rupert Keegan and James Hunt began to attract more and more press attention. Lucrative sponsorship arrangements allowed the teams to experiment with new ways to improve performance. One of the most famous examples of this has to be the 1976 six-wheel Tyrrell. Towards the end of the decade, aerodynamics went at a pace. Teams were finding vast improvements in corner speeds by focusing on the design of the car's floor. By creating a void of negative pressure underneath the vehicle, designers could literally suck their cars down onto the circuit. And with that, the Grand Car was born.
Now let's get on with the action from the John Cooper Trophy. Named after the legendary car designer, this is the second race for the pre-1966 cars. Enrico Spaghiari claimed pole position in his Cooper T53. Let's join the action.
The whole grid now is beginning to build the revs. Out go the lights and we're racing. And it's the 53 pole car that does get away. Spaghiari from pole position seems to have done at least the first part of the job. Now can he hold on, or is he going to get somebody around the outside? I think he's just about done enough. Let's look down through the pack as they stream through for the first time.
Yeah, Clark on the outside came up really well from row 2. The two cars wobbled there and went out. Mark Clubb, I think that was really wide in his Cooper as well. But as they come down into the complex here at Beckett's, it looks like Spaghiari. He's got very sideways.
Oh, he's not going to get that back. For a moment, he must have thought he'd done enough. But the poleman and leader spins out on lap 1. And that's a disaster. He's going to be way down the field. He'll be kicking himself. That just took in a little bit too much speed.
Could this cue a Graham Dodd-like recovery drive? We saw Graham Dodd finish second in the sports car race earlier on, having spun the first lap. Maybe Enrico Spaghiari can charge his way back up into the top 6.
Here's the leader going off again, Mark. There's just too much speed there.
Oh, absolutely. The tyres are cold, all arms and elbows, he just couldn't catch it.
Now here is the battle for the lead, coming up the Daily Express Bridge.
Bit of change at Abbey because Mark Piercy now leads the way. Piercy's Cooper leads with. This car was rather smoky yesterday. He's got up ahead again, and it's the John Clark Cooper which follows, pulling away.
Yes.
Enrico Spaghiari. Not Spaghiari.
Piercy.
Piercy. Man who we saw win at Goodwood a couple of years ago in an old MG.
Oh, and there's another mistake there, I'm afraid. Now,
yeah, that's Alan Bailey, 71. The veteran, been racing for more than 40 years, and he's dropped the Cooper.
He's on the way in, Marcus, and did well actually not to shoot right across the rest of the track.
And he's in the bunker now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's dropped his back wheels.
He hit the curb on the outside of Maggots. That's what it was.
There's a moment here when he looks very, very worried about rejoining halfway down the top 10. He's got back in there, beached, back wheels in the gravel trap.
Horseman up on the inside of Clark, takes the place. New second place man is number 32, which is Peter Horseman.
That was and he's got just a little bit excitable as he goes through Stowe. Has he managed to hold onto the momentum? I think he's lost it. He has. That was the danger there, went in on the slightly tight line and just tried to get on the throttle a little bit too early. Lost the back end of the car, and back through goes Clark, but then he's gone wide.
Do you see this in today's modern, hideous one-make classes?
Stop! Oh, he's gone through again there. Look, 3 corners, 2 changes of position.
Awesome.
Don't get me started on this versus contemporary racing.
You and I
do
both.
Not. Spec series racing, for me, which is what Formula 1 is at the moment, is not the way to go. It doesn't necessarily provide you with close racing like this.
Wing walkers overhead.
Hello. Part of the attractions off the track here at Silverstone this weekend. Just look at the difference. These pre-war cars, this ERA, used for a variety of motorsport, of course, in those days.
Yeah, it's Ian Landy, who's a Brit but lives in the States, driving one of these wonderful cars, developed in Bourne in Lincolnshire by Raymond Mays. Riley-based straight 6 engine, pre-selector gearbox. Absolutely fantastic. They came in 1500 2-litre sizes basically when they were new, and it's a lot of steam coming out of the bonnet of the car, and his hand goes up. So Ian Landy, unfortunately, we were extolling the virtues of the English racing automobile, and unfortunately it's gone lame. Horseman comes back down the inside. That's a real wiggle.
Oh, that is a battle for second position. So all of a sudden, second, third and fourth are absolutely together. Watch for the red card. There it goes through the picture. So this is not over by any stretch of the imagination. And I think we've got another 3.17 miles to go at the end of this one, because I'm just thinking that Piercy is not going to get around before time expires. But here's the battle for second, Marcus.
Well, it's just fantastic, isn't it? They've got a Cooper Bristol to get through on the way out of Club up towards Abbey. Sid Hall was balked at the previous corner, so he's not there in the run anymore. But up the inside, Clark hangs on as they go into Abbey. They've got the Rudolph Ernst pale green Lotus ahead of them. The number 32 Lotus, the 18 updated to 21 spec.
Here's the leader. This is Mark Piercy coming to finish the 20-minute race for the John Cooper Trophy race. And winning it is Piercy, gets the checkered flag. Well, that is a run for that car.
Congratulations to Mark Piercy for coming through the field and fending off Peter Horsman and John Clark to claim the win.
Not such a good start today as yesterday. I think I came out off the line in about third place, and then Enrico spun it on the first lap. So I followed John Clark through in second place, and then I got past him, I think, end of first or second lap, and then just tried to keep it together. I'm careful with the back markers today, made a couple of mistakes yesterday. But no, good fun, good race.
There's still plenty of action to come from the Formula One cars at the Silverstone Classic. We have a chat to triple Formula One world champion Sir Jackie Stewart. And Rob Barth continues his guide through the history of Formula One.
How can you reduce your carbon tyre print? Well, reducing any unnecessary weight is a good start. Or develop your own hybrid propulsion technology. Or you could buy a Blue Line approved Peugeot 308 with CO2 emissions of just 120 grams per kilometre and 62 miles per gallon. Reduce your carbon tyre print and get up to £1,350 saving with a Blue Lion approved Peugeot 308.
This season, Setanta has 46 Barclays Premier League matches, exclusively live. Contenders versus hopefuls. And then we've got the FA Cup. David versus Goliath. We've got the England home friendlies, and only we've got all the crucial away World Cup qualifiers. Fabio versus fate. It's having all this versus not having it. Subscribe now at setanta.com.
This is Castleford in Yorkshire. The people here are embarking on an extraordinary experiment to redesign key areas of their failing town.
Tell me what is wrong with that design.
I'm not qualified to say.
I will not have people dictating to us about our community when they don't live there.
5 years in the making. Kevin MacLeod and the Big Town Plan continues Monday at 9 on 4.
Welcome back to the Silverstone Classic. Well, we've seen lots of action so far out there on track, but now let's go off track and take a look at the history of Formula One cars with Rob Barth.
In a bid to improve safety and reduce cornering speeds, the governing body introduced new rules which forced the team to run a fixed aerodynamic skirt and to raise the ride height up to 6 centimetres. The teams were forced to run much stiffer suspension, and what this did was turn the cars into 200-mile-an-hour go-karts. 1982 marked the end of the ground effects era. A major change in chassis evolution also occurred in the 1980s. The tubular steel frames were quickly replaced with carbon fibre monocoques. They were lighter, stronger, and made the cars much quicker. John Watson took victory for McLaren here at Silverstone in the British Grand Prix in 1981. The 1980s saw Williams take the big step up to the front of the field. Alan Jones at the beginning of the decade took their first World Championship crown. Keke Rosberg won the title in 1982 driving this car, and in 1985 he set the fastest ever qualifying lap of Silverstone in an average speed of almost 161 miles an hour. 2.9 miles in 66 seconds. Just incredible. The next major leap in Formula One evolution was soon upon us with the arrival of the turbocharged engines. Power outputs rocketed. In qualifying trim, these 1.5-litre cars could be putting out over 1,000 horsepower. That's 10 times the amount of your average family runabout. The 1990s proved a successful time for British driving talent. Nigel Mansell won the World Championship in 1992, and 4 years later Damon Hill did the same. They both won races here at Silverstone, as did Johnny Herbert in 1995, and David Coulthard scored a back-to-back pair of victories in 99 and 2000. Like much of the 1990s, the following decade was dominated by just one man. Michael Schumacher took an unprecedented 7 World Championship crowns and redefined what one man could achieve within the sport. For the British drivers, it was a pretty lean spell until a certain Lewis Hamilton inked his name upon a McLaren race contract for the 2007 Formula One World Championship season. Hamilton's victory at Silverstone this year was the 198th Grand Prix victory for a British driver in F1's 58-year history. Even after the Schumacher dominance, Germany still lagged behind in second with over 90 victories less. Will Hamilton be able to challenge Michael Schumacher's legacy? Only time will tell.
Next up, it's the Silverstone Classic Trophy. This is race 2 for the 1966 to 85 cars. The front row is the same as in the first race, with Britain's Peter Sowerby ahead of Japanese driver Katsu Kubota. Let's join Toby Moody and Murray Walker in the commentary box.
So already then, this is the big one of the day, and we are all set now. A go! And go, go, go! And Peter Sowerby leads, and Joachim Fox sprints up on the inside. Past Kubota, that was a brilliant start by the Swiss driver. There he is, but Sowerby cuts across the front of him, and in third position it's Hartley. So, what a terrific start out of Kopp's corner, and Sowerby leads, followed by Falk in second position. In third position it's Steve Hartley.
And it's Hubertus Balsen who's got the orange arrows up to fourth position. He's gained a position. Good start by Falk. Got the clutch absolutely right.
Kubota has dropped back. Dan Collins in the other Lotus 88 was in fifth position, but he's dropping back. It looks to me as though he's got some sort of a trouble. Down towards Stoke Corner go the leaders, Sowerby and Falk, followed by Hartley and Hubertus. And they're streaming round the right-hander now. Well, this is going to be an epic race because Sowerby didn't really have any opposition yesterday. He won by some 10, nearly 11 seconds.
Look at the start of Falk on the left-hand side.
Watch Falk, number 7, as he sprints through and up into second position, following Peter Sowerby. There he is. There's another replay straight past the Japanese driver, Kubota, into the right-hander at Kopp's corner. And now, as we wait for them to appear, it's Sowerby leading. Falk is in second position, so it is a 1981 Williams against a 1981 Brabham, and they were driven respectively in their days by Alan Jones and Carlos Reutemann, the Williams, and by the great Nelson Piquet. And Hartley is holding that third position. He's still in front of Katsu Kubota, the Japanese driver. Mauro Pane, the man who is leading the championship, is in sixth position, in the six-wheel Tyrrell.
Oh, we've got an engine blow-up.
And it looks like it's David Abbott. And he's in the 1980 Unique Ensign. That's the car that Channel 5 programme presenter Tiff Needell used to drive, and this is what's happened. That looks like a rather expensive blow-up. It costs quite a lot of money to rebuild a Ford DFV these days.
It certainly does. It looks like the right bank that's gone, and we also lost a DFV yesterday. Frank Sittner having to retire his car. Look at the drift, perfect drift from Steve Hartley as he comes through Club Corner. He's having a look, and he's a lot closer than we've seen before. He goes wide, but Hartley almost takes the nose off, the little stubby short nose off the Lotus. Oh, and Kubota has a bit of a bobble. He may not be able to recover from that.
Hartley's got the experience, and Kubota is he's very quick indeed. I was talking to one of the mechanics yesterday, and they said he's very quick indeed, but sometimes, just sometimes, he leaves the scenery. Well, Hartley, as I said, knows that if he stays where he is, it's going to be very, very difficult for him to be passed.
Yes, 9 points for a class win, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1, just as they used to get awarded in their day.
Must jump in here, because there is a really historic motor car. That's the first ever Tyrrell that was built by the great Tyrrell, Ken Tyrrell, for the equally great 3 times world champion Jackie Stewart. It's now owned and driven by 63-year-old American enthusiast John Delane, who's come all the way over from the States to compete in this event. What a beautiful motor car.
That is Pane, Mauro Pane, leading his class. He's 7th overall, and there's something in the middle of the racetrack. There's some bits of bodywork that's just been thrown up by the big fat slick tyres here.
Pane is battling with American Roy Walton, that's number 30 Walter, in the 81 Williams, the car that was...
I think it might be one of the marker posts, Murray, that's on the inside of the Woodcote corner. Meanwhile, look at the Tyrrell. Oh, it's weaving under the brakes as it goes into the Maggots and Beckett's complex. He just about held it. All 4 of those front tyres were struggling for grip. And, of course, because they're going round more times than a normal-sized front tyre, they're probably getting an awful amount of heat into them. But they go on third position.
Hartley nearly losing, and Kubota goes through. Kubota
Kubota goes through and takes third position. I said that all that Hartley had to do was to keep it steady and on the racing line. I didn't mean for him to go sideways, and Kubota has thanked his lucky stars for that, and he sprints through up into third position.
Well, maybe the tyres are getting hot. It's cracking on to 30 degrees Celsius here at Silverstone. Classic Silverstone weather, like the type of weather that you were here in the early 90s and such, like seeing victories from Mansell and then Damon Hill back in 94. Classic stuff from Kubota. He's had a cool head after that spin. Let's have a look at this.
Yep, Kubota dives through on the outside. Steve Hartley runs wide, gets it all crossed up, nearly touches wheels with the Lotus 88, nearly loses it as he tries to recover, fails to do so, and the Japanese driver keeps a cool head, cuts across, takes the racing line, keeps his position.
Now there you have it. It's right on the line as we start the last lap. The 3.2 miles. This is going to be a photo finish. Williams versus Brabham.
Indeed it is. Down to Copse Corner. And that is a 160-mile-an-hour corner in these conditions. And Falk seems to have got a second wind altogether.
And there's a problem with Sowerby, unless he was having bad luck lapping, because he lapped 4 seconds a lap slower on the last lap. He's got to keep his cool.
Falk goes through and takes the lead. Sowerby has undoubtedly got a problem. I suspect his tyres have gone off. The engine sounded steady enough when he went past me last time. But meantime, Falk is absolutely sprinting away, and it could be therefore that Peter Sowerby hasn't got a tyre problem, he's got a gearbox problem. I suspect he may have lost a gear for some reason.
Now then, here are some yellow flags. That, of course, is being waved for the Lotus. Did Falk pass under yellows? As that's going to be one for the judges.
Well, he's into under bridge corner for the last time now, up to Priory and Brooklands, the left-hander, then into that seemingly never-ending right-hander at Luffield, which is a 180-degree corner, which he's starting now. Then it will be the sprint up to Woodcote, that tremendously fast right-hander, for Joachim Falk to come through and take the checkered flag after what is going to be a famous victory. And he does it. Joachim Falk in the 1981 Brabham wins round 6 of the FIA Historic Championship.
Murray Walker, it has been a pleasure to have you up here in the commentary box.
And to be with you, Toby. Thank you very much indeed. It's taken me back to the Formula One days that I loved.
So the Spanish driver Joachim Falk got the upper hand and beat Peter Sowerby to the line to claim the win.
The first part of the race was very close as well. Then he pulled away a little bit, and then I saw him slowing down, and I thought, oh, that's the way I'm going to catch it, you know. And by the end, I don't know what happened to him, but I catch him and pass him and forget him.
After the race, the officials decided that Joachim overtook when a yellow flag was out, and Peter Sowerby was handed the win. There was also a celebration of classic Lister sports cars going on at the event, and we caught up with Sir Jackie Stewart, who was taking part.
It's a fantastic weekend. It's been going on from almost Thursday, and it's one of the great events in the calendar, in my opinion, because this is where real racing still takes place. They're not just demonstrations like I've just been part of. There's a lot of hard racing going on.
And for you, do you look back and think the 60s, I mean, was the sort of golden era really of British racing, or do you think it's still the top?
Well, you know, the 60s and 70s were very good. Britain's had a great history, not only of being able to produce very good racing cars over the years, but great drivers. And these were represented well in the 60s. Graham Hill, Jim Clark, of course, the great Jim Clark, but there was a great number of drivers that were in the 60s, and then going on into the 70s, James Hunt arrived, and Damon Hill, I think, was in the 80s and 90s. So we've had world championships since the 60s. We had the 50s as well, with Mike Hawthorne, of course, winning the first ever world championship as a Brit. So we've got great history in this country that we've got to keep, and we've got to replace it with the new Brian Listers of tomorrow.
It's now time for our final race from the Silverstone Classic, race 2 of the James Hunt Trophy for cars between 1966 and 1978. This time it's Michael Fitzgerald that claimed pole position in his March, so let's get trackside.
The Porsche safety car is off. We are doing a non-period rolling start to preserve the clutches on these cars. 25 minutes of racing gets underway as all of that horsepower is unleashed down towards the first corner.
And look at the Penske coming through. Yeah, the 23 Penske coming through. Great start from Paul Natfield. That car looks like those marches, but actually it was designed and built by the Penske organisation down in Poole, their British wing of their organisation, and it has moved up into third place as we got the two marches as yesterday. And there the Williams FW06 driving down the inside.
That's a tremendous by Abercogan, the Brazilian, in the louder class than the FW06. That was one of the very first models that I built of cars of that era.
I don't like to tell you this, I launched that car as well. Yeah, down it did, yeah.
And there's a change of position back again for thirds. Oh, and back again, it looks like the Williams is getting it back. Hogan goes back on the inside. Yeah. This is tremendous stuff. Andrew Marriott, who's had more launches than Swan Hunters shipyards on Tyneside.
And the funny thing was, we had about 12 press there, John. Yeah, that was a big launch.
That was the way in those days.
Yeah,
that's
the aim
car.
on the light blue car.
Yeah, that's a very, very pretty car.
Yes, Ron Maiden's driving that. He's the man behind the Master Series. They dive down the inside.
Overcooked it, lost it. It was almost inevitable, wasn't it? Looked to be trying to bite off more than he could chew, and he's got to get back out. And he's actually pulls up. He hits Nick Taylor coming through. Poor Nick Taylor in the cert. He's nowhere to go, and that wasn't smart stuff, I'm afraid. And there's another spin, the shadow going round as well. That's Nicholas Koivas, and he is going to have to get that one restarted. Fortunately, and there's the
yellows out.
Also, the slippery surface flag there under the bridge. I think there's more damage
for the Durex Surtees as well. And that must have been involved.
Yeah, that's Mark Dwyer. Now here's the original incident. Runs wide, loses it, and all really not well there, but a bad decision to pull back out here.
Yeah, well, I think the stewards might talk to him about that. I mean, you're all wound up, you know.
Safety car is out, Andrew.
And then here, look at that. Well, just missed by the Tyrrell. And
Jeff Lewis must have seen his racing career flash before him in a moment there. Forming up nicely 2 by 2, and if anything, the leader's just backing off a little bit. Now they'll get on the loud pedal and go for it, and that's a very clever start indeed by the poleman.
Yeah, and the Williams was going very quickly as well on the outside. And
the Brabham down the inside, had a cracking start, but overcooks it, has to get out of the throttle and loses 1, 2, 3 positions. Really looked like it got a great start, was up into third place, but it's the two marches, as you were, down through Maggots and Beckett's, and that was a very clever start indeed by the poleman.
Yeah, Anglo-American battle going on. Nice to see that. Hesketh up in third place. Built just in the stables at Easton Neston, just about 5 miles as the crow flies here from Silverstone by Lord Hesketh and his merry men. And they certainly were merry a lot of the time.
Now the Brabham's dropped back into 5th position, lost another place there. And off! I'm afraid that is the Eamon, the 7, the very pretty blue car. Just a slight mistake there, will regain the circuit. Look in the mirror, good man. Shadow then, tell us a little bit about that, Andrew.
Well, it's a company started by an American. This is an American Grand Prix car, although it was built in Britain and designed by Tony Southgate. Don Nichols, the man behind it. Tony Southgate, saw him here yesterday, and that's in several race car designers here over the weekend. And ultimately, there was a big falling out amongst the group, and Tony Southgate and Alan Rees, who was the team manager, went off and started the Arrows organisation. Don Nichols did sue them and won successfully, said they'd stolen the design. But Peter Revson and the likes drove these cars absolutely fantastic.
Well, look, now here's the leaders, battle for the lead. He's got a back mark, and this could be his chance. Will the Cooper Alpha might just be the save? No, it isn't. And again, the leaders had just dived down to the inside.
Well,
for me, though, Andrew,
Cooper got well out of the way.
Yes, absolutely. For me, though, Williams just a little bit quicker through bridge.
Yeah, I think so. I think Williams is putting pressure on now.
It's not really anywhere else on the circuit other than bridge. He gets a good run out of Abbey, down to bridge, through bridge, and as they turn into the first left-hander, he clips one of the bollards there. He's trying to take the closest line as he can. Oh, this is what we've got 5 minutes 40, so that's what 2.5, 3 laps then. I reckon.
It's going down the inside. No, switches across again.
All he's trying to do now, Andrew, is take the shortest course possible and keep that car big in the mirrors. Let's have a look at the 711 March in the 007, that 007 Tyrrell going through, that big T-tray. That was another scale extra car that was very, very popular.
Yeah, Robin Hurd thought that was the way to go. No end plate, you know. I mean, now they spend...
What did he think that was going? How did he think that was going to work?
Well, it's all clean at the front, though, isn't it? And Robin was a brilliant engineer. Came, if I remember, from Oxford with a double first in this, that, and the other. And there's that Amon back on
Ron
track
Maitland's
again.
got right back up behind them after his little off-course excursion.
The great Ronnie Pearson, of course, drove a car like that.
Oh, yes, the Amon looking very, very quick.
I mean, we're in the Stewart.
Having a look up the inside, Andrew, as they come into Stone. That's 10th, 11th, 12th. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, in fact. And that big T-tray on the front of the red car at the back. My Scale X6 car went much better when I'd broken that off by flying it into the dining room table. I think they're going to go through to one more lap.
I think they will, John. Yeah, I'm sure they will now.
And here is that guy. And he's got the problem for the left front has gone. Left
now
front
the suspension snaps.
Yeah, left front has gone. You could see that front wheel just rumbling around. Did he get a touch, or did he just break? No, he's had a look down the inside and touched the...
It's already broken there, you see, and the bottom wishbone is already broken, and the top rocker arm will just collapse. There it goes.
Last back marker to get around for the leader, which he negotiates with skill and aplomb, and will come through Woodcote to complete lap number 9 and take the checkered flag in the second James Hunt Trophy race.
So it was a lights to flag victory for Michael Fitzgerald, with Peter Williams in second place, making it a March 1-2 on the podium. Many congratulations, Michael.
Thank you very much.
A good result for you this weekend, despite all the incidents out there on the track.
I had a fantastic time. I'd never been to the circuit before, so I had to learn it, and I really do enjoy it. I mean, it's got an interesting mix of high speed and low speed corners, and it's fairly safe, so I really do like that.
That was awesome.
Thank you, buddy. Good race.
Well, that's it from the Silverstone Classic. We hope you've enjoyed the event. It's been great seeing all of those Formula One cars back out on track. But with all good things, it must come to an end. But hopefully, we'll see you next year. Bye-bye.